Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Strategy Talks and Mechanics Guide series. And this is probably going to be one of my more interesting videos. In this episode, I wanted to really do something that one of you guys actually suggested, and that was talk about the case against Darkrai. Now, I made a case for Cress a while back, and this is a Reddit thread that was actually made by none other than yours truly. If you scroll through here, it is a very long Reddit thread. I think that the guy that made this put a lot of time into it. Anyway, I'll probably be linking this in the description of this video if I remember to. If I don't, please let me know and I'll try to add it as soon as possible. But yeah, if you're interested in reading it, go check it out. I go way more in depth into this concept in the this essay. It's an essay, I'll call it that, than what I'm going to for the course of this video. But I did want to touch on a little bit of why I don't think Darkrai is worth it. And this is probably one of my hottest takes, but a lot of people are very hyped about Darkrai, and I take a very logical approach to the game, and I think about, like, okay, what's the cost and what's the benefit? Does the cost outweigh the benefit? And that's really something that we should be training ourselves to do throughout the course of this game, is do cost-benefit analysis. And Darkrai is the ultimate biscuit sink. It is the ultimate attempt by the devs to try and get you to spend your resources on Darkrai. And there's a lot of discussion about, oh, you could just use the free resources, like free Poke Biscuits, just toss it, your daily biscuit when you see it when it's hungry. But it takes a long time, and that still is a biscuit expense. Even if you do get one daily, you're still expending some kind of resource that could be spent on something else. So what does Darkrai really benefit you? How much is it worth that 25 pips for a single Eureka Seed to reroll a single sub-skill on a Darkrai, or to reroll a single ingredient slot on a Darkrai? What does that do? Well, I think that we can evaluate him in 4 different ways. Either as a berry specialist, as a skill specialist, as an ingredient specialist, or as a combination of all 4. Or a combination of all 3. And I want to take you through each one of these facets of how Darkrai performs and ranks. And honestly, I will also say this. I've had some requests by people to talk about the optimal Darkrai, or what's the best way to build Darkrai. I feel like there have already been videos on that topic before that have been handled well by other YouTubers. And I don't think that I really want to make that discussion, because personally, I don't want to be encouraging anyone to invest in this Pokemon, because I think that it is a suboptimal decision. If you enjoy the Pokemon, go out and do what you find fun. I'm always a proponent for, if you think, even if something's suboptimal, if it's what you enjoy, go out and invest and do whatever it is that you want to do. But I'm not going to make a video about the best investment on a Darkrai, or the best way you want the Darkrai's skills to be, because I think that investing it to begin with is a suboptimal decision in terms of strength in this game. And let's hop into why that is. So, first facet of evaluating Darkrai, berry specialists. Now, there are kind of 3 different ways you can evaluate a berry specialist in this game. You can either evaluate them when their inventory is infinite and see how many berries they produce. You can evaluate them under sneaky snacking and then see how much they produce. Or you can try to evaluate based off of a composite of each, by evaluating by total strength with favored berry enabled. Now, I don't think the first way of evaluating it, or I don't think that the second way of evaluating it under sneaky snacking is really the best way to go about it in Darkrai's case, because a big portion of Darkrai's draw is that it's an all specialist. And if you really just let it sneaky snack, then it's just a slightly worse Weavile, because it has a slightly lower frequency, and frequency is the only thing that matters under sneaky snacking conditions. Meanwhile, making a composite is what I'm going to do for the 4th evaluation. So, to evaluate for berries alone, I wanted to just evaluate if you just use a composite of their berry rate, which is the inverse of their ingredient rate, and their frequency, then how does it perform compared to other Dark-type berry specialists, the other best one. And as you can see here, compared to Weavile, it's like 97k versus 92k on this comparison at level 65. So it's a little bit better, yes. But not really all that much better with Berry Finding S. It's a little bit better. But the question you should be asking yourself is this difference of like somewhere from 5 to 10%, is that worth it for all the cost that Darkrai has? Now, Weavile's not a particularly cheap Pokemon in this game, don't get me wrong. But consider everything. Okay, next comparison. Oh, whoops. That's a minor spoiler for later. That's supposed to be the last comparison. My comparisons got thrown out of order. Let's go to ingredients next. As far as ingredients go, like I said, other YouTubers have made videos. Particularly Brovini, I know, made one that talked about how it compares for every single ingredient that it can farm. And it's terrible for ingredients. It honestly shouldn't even have the ingredient specialist title. It technically does deserve it, because for those of you that don't know, little tidbit about the game that I've never really talked about before, because I wasn't even made aware of this until a couple weeks ago. The way they actually define an ingredient specialist in this game is by their ingredient spread for their A list. So, as you can see on Darkrai, it is 257 for its AAA list, if we consider apples to be its A ingredient. That is true for Skeledirge here, who also has a 257 spread on apples. Every ingredient specialist in the game has this for its A ingredient. It is 257. The other procs are derived from dividing it by whatever that ingredient's base strength is, and then rounding is where they get the other ones from. So, naturally, an ingredient specialist that has apples is going to struggle to produce a lot, because apples are the lowest base value ingredient in the game. They're going to need some other insane stat to counteract that effect. Now, Skeledirge gets away with it, because it's got with ingredient finding M, it's got a 36.45% ingredient finding rate. That is insane, nearly 1.5 times that of what Darkrai has. So, it gets away with it for apple productivity. Darkrai, on the other hand, has the apple ingredient list, because you can see that is the 257 spread. Nothing else is that. Even the second lowest ingredient in value is milk. That's 246. It doesn't have that going for it. So as you can see, the ingredient productivity is just abysmal on Darkrai compared to Skeledirge, and this is one of the better comparisons for it. If you compare to other ingredient specialists, it is just even worse. It's more like a berry specialist that produces a little bit bonus ingredients on the side. It's like if it was a berry... I'd say it's a berry specialist that is always under the effect of those events where they give +1 ingredient proc to all Pokemon of a certain type. That's really what it is. It's not an ingredient specialist, but it produces more ingredients than normal berry and skill specialists. Because it really can't be holding up in this comparison. Now, it does have a very unique application in that, theoretically, it can do apples and milk at the same time, which is pretty synergistic. And I'm sure there are other lists you could come up with like this. I know that you can't really get corn and coffee on anything else as far as I'm aware. Maybe Drifblim. I don't know about that one. Anyway, you can't get corn and coffee on either Pokemon, so maybe that's synergistic as well. I don't know. I'm not looking at the ingredient list right now. But Darkrai being able to change its ingredient list is something that's a bit unique about it compared to other ingredient specialists. One of the primary thing that people focus on when it comes to the mono ingredient meta is one of the biggest reasons for it is because they're power creep immune. Because if you get a level 60 Monomon, you know it's always going to make that ingredient. Meanwhile, a mixed ingredient list Pokemon, theoretically, if you're basing it around a particular meal, if that meal gets power crept, that may feel bad. Now, there are points to refute that, but that is, I think, one of the strongest points of the mono ingredient meta. And that isn't true for Darkrai, because even if the meal that you're building it around gets power crept, a Eureka Seed can come in and fix that. But that's still an expense. That's a very expensive point as well. So once again, consider the cost and the benefit. Now, the final comparison for this individual look is probably one of the worst ones as well. Now, this is the comparison between Darkrai and Ampharos. Now, if we're looking at them strictly for the skill strength, comparing it for skills. My goodness, it is like almost the same. In fact, it's kind of funny because if you get rid of pity procs, it's actually wildly better for the Ampharos. The Ampharos does better at the generalist role for like charge strength itself than the Darkrai does. If you're not accounting for pity procs, which relies on you leaving it on the team all the time, because that's kind of how pity procs work. You need to have it on the team for an extended period of time before you even see those pity procs. That means Darkrai is so bad at triggering the skill, you might go like 9 hours without a proc because you have to rely on the pity proc system. Maybe even 10 hours. Ampharos, not necessarily. RNG procs are going to be relatively frequently. It doesn't gain that much from pity procs, so removing that functionality doesn't... or giving that functionality on in the calculator doesn't really give it all that much more strength. But even we can see here, 36k versus 34k. That's a very minor difference. And consider not even just the cost here in terms of Eureka Seeds, consider the cost in energy. This Ampharos does nothing as far as impacting the team's energy. This Darkrai is either doing one of two things. It's either forcing you to... well, it's forcing you to play around the energy, realistically. It's forcing you to either run additional healers or take the hit or run dark types primarily or only. That's a heavy restriction that the Ampharos does not come with. Additionally, the Darkrai actually costs one more seed than what the Ampharos does, because even though the Ampharos has a higher main skill level, Darkrai doesn't get any evolution, Ampharos gets 2 tiers of evolution, so the Darkrai actually takes one more seed. So, I'd really say if you're running Darkrai for the skill, just look at an Ampharos. It's going to cost you less in many, many ways. Additionally, it doesn't take your special slot. That's something that I haven't even touched on yet. Darkrai takes the special slot. It's your only legendary that you can run. Now, this may not matter that much right now, because not everybody has a legendary they could run instead of Darkrai. Darkrai, everyone caught one. Everyone theoretically can work and spend all their biscuits to try and make Darkrai good eventually. But one day, as they add more legendaries to the game, and we have more legendary events that we go through, the odds of you getting a decent legendary go up and up the more you participate in those events. The odds only get better the longer... well, the odds don't get better, but the odds that you catch a good legendary only really is stronger the more legendary events that you go through. So... eventually, one day, there might be a different legendary that you want to run instead of Darkrai, but if you've invested that much into a Darkrai, you're forced to use it if you want to actually get the value out of it that you spent. And you won't be able to look at the new option, or you'll be given with this tough choice to choose. And then it's like, is it worth it that I spent all that when I can only use it half the time because you want to use your other legendary as well? That's another consideration to be had. For long-term viability that it takes the special slot. But the last thing I want to talk about is the composite. Now, why is there a Houndoom? What is Houndoom doing here? Weavile's the best Dark-type berry specialist. Why would I ever compare Darkrai to Houndoom? Well, something very interesting. Houndoom makes a very good comparison to Darkrai, because Darkrai has herbs in its list, and so does Houndoom. They're both Dark-type berry specialists, and they both have a charge strength main skill. Houndoom is just a diet Darkrai. I think of it as diet Darkrai, is like my thoughts with it. It's got a like, they are basically the same, but Houndoom's just weaker. But Houndoom doesn't cost 100 biscuits. Houndoom doesn't cost your team's energy. It doesn't cost your special slot. So I think this is a very fair comparison for, is it really worth giving up all of those expenses for the benefits we can gain over a Darkrai than a Houndoom? Because realistically, if you could invest a Houndoom and it makes a comparable strength, then why would you ever choose a Darkrai? Now, if we look at the comparison here, Darkrai does beat it in every metric. But the question really is, by how much? We're looking at a 10 herb a day difference. And I gave them no sub-skills in nature because I figured for this comparison, it'd be really difficult to compare since we're looking at all facets of the Pokemon's productivity. So, if we're looking at it this way, it does produce less berry strength. It does produce about 10 less herbs a day. And it does produce about like half the skill strength. But once again, what's the expense? It's overall net about 2/3 the strength, the overall strength of what Darkrai is producing. So you're really getting one of the biggest draws of Darkrai is that you're running what 3 Pokemon can do in 1 Pokemon. But the Houndoom's strength is actually showing that it's comparable to like 3 halves of a Pokemon, because it's producing just 3 halves of what this Houndoom is about. So, and it's that way for ingredients, skills, and berries. So it's spreading itself too thin, and with the costs that it's just not worth it, in my opinion. If it were a single biscuit to catch, or if we just got Eureka Seeds for free or something, and maybe if we had more mythicals to choose between, and we got Eureka Seeds, and it was like we bought a Eureka Seed, and we could use it on any of our mythicals. You know what? Maybe it'd be worth thinking about. If they were more accessible and free-to-play friendly, if we could have access to them, then maybe this would be worth it, because it is 1 team slot, and that is roll compression, that is innately good. But when we look at the costs and we think of the benefits, as it stands right now, I don't think anyone should be investing in a Darkrai. And it's great for me to end that discussion as the music kind of dies. I don't know what's going on my laptop, but I'll be honest, I am a bit disappointed with the implementation of Darkrai. That criticism does not come out of a place of hate for the devs. It comes out of a place of love and wanting to see the game continue to be as good as it has always been. But ultimately, it doesn't necessarily harm anyone, because it's not necessarily a scummy mechanic. It's a clearly intentionally designed biscuit sink that I think is designed to generate all the hype, get us to waste all our resources, and ultimately get us to spend more biscuits. And that's my warning of saying, you know what, don't invest Darkrai. There are so many better other things to invest your seeds into, and to invest your biscuits into. Biscuits are one of the most valuable things in the game. And one of the heaviest criticisms I've gotten about this is, if it's what I want to do, then let me do it. And you know what? Go for it. Do it. But I've seen a lot of players experiencing burnout. I think one of the biggest causes of that burnout is feeling like we have to spend biscuits on everything. And then we don't have biscuits to spend on the 5 pip options that are right there, that can provide you with the sub-skills that you're looking for genuine, lots of progress. If you don't care about progress, that's okay. But I know that a lot of people are looking for that big, very powerful skill roll, sub-skill roll on a berry specialist, on an ingredient specialist. And if you're spending all your biscuits on Darkrai, you're never going to get that, and you're going to burn out on the game. So that's why I think Darkrai is dangerous, because it leads to burnout because of the biscuit expense. So if you think my warning has validity, then be sure to leave a like and subscribe. It'd be appreciated. I've gotten a lot of criticism for this thoughts in the Reddit. It's been a very controversial discussion. But yeah, if you, down in the description, we'll have a link to join my Discord. You can come join us, hang out, talk about all things Pokemon, sleep, and the like. I've got the join button. Feel free to click that if you want to support the channel in that way and are financially capable of doing so. I don't have any paid rewards for members, but I do give a huge thank you to all my members. It is very well appreciated that you guys want to show that support to me in that way. And as always, I thank you all for watching and hope that you all have a wonderful day. Bye-bye now.